There is this really interesting experiment called the monster mother experiment. Researchers take a bunch of baby monkeys and give them fake mothers. These fake mothers would randomly abuse these kids. There were three kinds of fake mothers. One was the shaker, who would vigorously shake the kids until its teeth chattered. The second one was the air blast, which would hit the baby with compressed air, which would rip the baby's skin off. And the third one was the Iron Maiden, which would stab the babies with metal spikes. These fake mothers would randomly hit the babies and you would expect that the babies will run away, but that does not happen. While they are being hit, the babies try to protect them, but when the attack is over, they very tightly cling back to these fake mothers. This experiment revealed something very dark but something very important about the human brain. It explains how the human love is supposed to work, why the current red pill culture works or doesn't work, and why some people are built for toxic relationships. In fact, this research was the foundation for all the upcoming researches about how the human love works and what we currently know as the attachment theory. But before talking about that, there are a few more experiments which you have to know about. One of them is a more extreme version of the monster mother experiment, which is what if there is no mother? What if the kids are left alone in a cage with food and water and all the other basic necessities? This experiment was very famously called as the pit of despair.
This monkey is an orphan, separated from his mother since the day of his birth. He has been adequately nourished and well cared for. But literally, his life hangs by a thread, a soft cheesecloth pad that is his only companion, his only comfort. Once a day, the pad is removed for cleaning. Until it is replaced, the monkey is troubled, distressed.
You would expect that maybe they will grow up and be traumatized, but that is not the case. These monkeys don't get a chance to grow up. They die.
Permanently deprived of it, he may die. Die of loneliness. He may die for want of love.
The ones who do survive are disabled and they are incapable of forming any connection. They get bullied or even killed by the monkeys. And the same thing is observed in human babies. When babies don't get enough touch from anyone, they die or they cannot grow. They are disabled. This shows just how valuable love and attachment is. After this, there was another experiment on rats. Researchers take a bunch of baby rats and traumatize them over and over again and again in their own home using electricity. They do this to associate the feeling of being home with pain and trauma. Whenever these baby rats grow up, they become adults. Researchers let them play outside and then scare them with a very loud noise. The rats are very shocked, they start shaking, their heart rate goes up and they start running. And at this point they have two choices. Go back to the traumatic home full of pain or go to another place which is at equal distance which they know of, which is quite safe and they have no bad memories of that place. And as you would expect, the rats go back to their home. Going back to this traumatic place somehow gives them comfort. Their heart rate goes down, they stop shaking and they feel comfortable. For them, traumatic home equals comfort. There are multiple versions of this experiment done on different animals in different situations. So for example, there is one version where researchers associate a certain smell with trauma when these animals are young. Whenever they grow up and they are scared, they go back to the place which smells like their trauma. They find comfort in that place. All of these versions prove the same thing, which is that the brain does not care about what is good or what is safe or what is healthy. It finds comfort in what it is used to, what is familiar. It finds love and attachment in this familiarity. And just in case if you are wondering, this is also true for humans. In humans, it is a very commonly observed phenomenon where people who grew up in chaotic house want chaos in their life. The girl who grew up being abused by her father somehow always ends up with an abusive boyfriend. The girl who grew up with her parents ignoring her ends up with a boyfriend who does not pay enough attention to her, who ignores her. In fact, there is a book which I was reading for this video which is called Body Keeps the Score. The book is written by a therapist and one of his patients was a girl who was sold as a prostitute. She gets the therapy, she tries to fix herself, she gets an amazing boyfriend who is very caring, who is very supportive, who is very sweet to her, but to her, that is boring. In her own words, the guy would bore her to tears. She wanted adventure. And so she goes back to her pimp who used to sell her, who used to beat her up, and that felt good to her. In the language of psychology, this is called trauma bonding. We humans love the people who make us feel what we felt as a child. Even if that thing was being abused, being beaten up, being ignored by our parents, or being raped. So let's talk about a thing called as the Stockholm Syndrome. Basically, if a victim is being abused again and again by a person, he or she starts forming attachment for that person. They basically crave this abuse. Which makes no fucking sense if you think about it, because why would your brain learn to love something like abuse and trauma? Isn't that supposed to be a bad thing? There were various theories to why this happens. One of them was, after a certain point, the victim accepts the abuse. The pain isn't that painful anymore, and they get obsessed with finding a resolution for this abuse. It is like if you're playing a game and you keep losing over and over again and again, you are going to be frustrated. But you will keep playing the game unless you win. The victims don't care about being abused anymore. They care about winning. These theories are pretty old and outdated. Thanks to modern science, now we understand love and attachment much better. Going back to the 3 experiments which I talked about, if you can connect the dots, you know exactly what I'm going to say. The bit of despair shows how love is absolutely necessary for living. Without it, you die. The monster mother shows how baby brains are designed to take love in any form, even if that love comes with pain. In fact, the more pain there is, the more desperate the babies get for the love. The same applies to humans, and this is the phase of life where humans learn to love. Learn it the wrong way here and the damage is permanent. And then finally, the rat experiment shows how the brain does not care about what is good or what is healthy. It only cares about the kind of love it experienced during childhood, even if that love was painful and traumatic. Going back to trauma bonding and the Stockholm syndrome, something really interesting is happening when people are being abused. Your brain releases certain chemicals similar to the drug morphine. It numbs you from physical and psychological pain, like a painkiller would. It happens so that you don't just die of a shock because someone is shouting at you. The problem is, just like most drugs, this is also quite addictive. This chemical not only makes you feel okay, it makes you feel good when going through something traumatic. When your brain gets used to this chemical because of the abuse, and all of a sudden for some reason this chemical goes away because the abuser goes away, and for a long time you don't get this chemical, your brain starts craving this chemical. Without it, it starts going insane. You just desperately want it. You go through the same things that drug addicts go when they stop taking drugs. Literally, because this thing is a drug. And it doesn't stop there. You see, there is one condition for the trauma bonding or the Stockholm syndrome to work, and that condition is that the abuser sometimes randomly has to be nice to you. The word randomly is important. Because it is random, there is an element of surprise. It gives the same feeling that gamblers get when they gamble. And to summarize the whole process of trauma bonding, when going through abuse, your brain releases a lot of negative hormones. You feel terrible. To control this pain, your brain releases morphine, the addictive drug we talked about a few moments ago. And then when the abuser is suddenly unexpectedly nice to you, your brain has a massive spike in feel-good hormones. Hormones like dopamine, the craving chemical, which also causes addiction, and oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical, the key chemical in making you feel love. In the language of gambling, you finally hit a jackpot. And because the abuser is the one who created the spike, all these feelings get attached to him. You start falling in love with this person, and this person has complete control over how you feel. But what happens if the abuse stops? You crave this jackpot again at all costs. All these chemicals, these hormones, your definition of love from your childhood, they have made you addicted to this experience. And so you go back to the person who abused you and who is also sometimes randomly sweet to you. And if that is not possible, you will go to another person who is also going to abuse you. The same cycle repeats all over again. If you like this video, you're going to love my next video, which is about attachment theory. Until then, you can watch this video where I talk about how to become more attractive without changing anything about your looks.